All right, so it's past 7, so let me just make sure I have my agenda ready here, and we can start in a moment. Okay, and I see we're missing one Commissioner Moman who is supposed to be absent, and Commissioner Donaldson, McLeod. Do we expect him?
I thought we were. I thought he was missing a June hearing, but yeah, for all I know, he's supposed to be here.
Okay. Well, we do have a quorum, so we can maybe message him and continue on. So I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Albany Planning and Zoning Commission for Wednesday, May 25th, 2022. And I will note that Commissioner Moman is excused and Commissioner McLeod is not yet present. Next, we'll move on to item 3, ex parte communications. Have any commissioners been involved in ex parte communications since our last meeting?
No.
Okay, seeing head shaking. Oh, and also Commissioner McLeod has arrived.
Yeah, sorry, very slow internet connection.
Yes, I think we're having in general internet congestion tonight, or indigestion. We have just done ex parte communications. There are none. We're moving on to the consent calendar, of which are 2 items: the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting minutes and PA 22-030 design review and parking reduction for split level rear addition at 614 Keynes Avenue. Do any commissioners wish to pull either of these items for discussion?
No.
No.
Okay. Does any of the members of the public want to pull a consent calendar item for discussion? Please raise your virtual hand. If so, give it a moment, but I'm not seeing any hands yet. And 3, 2, 1, we'll bring it back to the commission. So no items have been pulled for discussion. Would someone like to make a motion?
Sure. I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Okay. Thank you. Moved by Commissioner Donaldson, seconded by Commissioner Waddy. Do we have any dissent or abstentions from the vote? If not, I'll declare that a unanimous yes, and we'll move on to announcements and communications. None are listed in the agenda.
Actually,
Associate Planner Tan.
yeah, we actually have a couple of announcements. Just the first one I have is regarding the next Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, June 8th. That's noted on the agenda. That will actually, is already canceled. There just simply isn't enough planning applications that are ready for review, for commission to review.
Okay.
And then I'd like to add an announcement that the City Council will be taking up the application at 1600 Solano, a special meeting next Wednesday, June 1st at 7 p.m.
Okay.
And they will be acting on your recommendation.
Okay, thank you very much. Apologies, I was trying to get a bite into eat. Then moving on to item 6, which is public comment for members of the public. Commissioner Donaldson?
Yeah, Nick, Mr. Chair, maybe we should make it clear that when we approve the consent calendar, that project at 614 Keynes was thereby approved. If yes, the applicants watching and aren't familiar with our procedures, they might have missed that.
Thank you very much. And now that you've reminded me of too quickly moving through that item, I'm going to go back first to an item that I have forgotten now for the second time to read, which is the land acknowledgement. So I will read that now. The city of Albany recognizes that we occupy the land originally protected by the Confederated Villages of Lijan. We acknowledge the genocide that took place on these lands and must make strides to repay the moral debt that is owed to this indigenous people, specifically the Ohlone tribe. We thank them for their contributions, which has transformed our community and will continue to bring forth growth and unity. The city of Albany commits to sustaining ongoing relationships with the tribe and together build a better future for all that now make this their home. Okay, and were there any story polls for 614 Canes? I think no, okay.
No.
Thank you. Now we'll move back to item 6, which is public comment for members of the public wishing to address the commission on items that are not on tonight's agenda. Does any member of the public wish to speak on an item not on tonight's agenda? Please raise your virtual hand. Not seeing any hands go up. 3, 2, 1, we'll close that and move back to item 7, which is our action items. And first up is item 7.1, PA 22-017, design review for a second story addition at 631 Carmel Avenue. Staff, please.
Yes, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Once again, this is a design review for a second story addition at 631 Carmel Avenue. Some background on the property. The subject property is a 3,750 square foot lot with a 3-bedroom, 1.5 bathroom, 1,652 split story home built in 1934. It's notable that there is also an existing detached garage structure located at the rear of the property, which measures approximately 16 feet by 20 feet. City records show the following minor work done to the property. Here's a street view of the property as it sits today. And project requests. The applicant is seeking design review approval from the Planning and Zoning Commission for a second story addition to accommodate 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, and an office room. In general, the project scope includes lifting the split story portion of the home, which is located toward the rear, and establishing a larger main level. Additionally, this would create, the project scope would create a 650 square foot second story addition. Additionally, there's also substantial interior remodeling and reprogramming on both levels. Altogether, this would result in a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 1,950 square foot house with a maximum height of 21 feet and 2 inches. Here's an existing elevation of the home. And here's the proposed front elevation. You'll note the second story addition with the siding material called out. The project is subject to Albany's exceptional design requirements as it exceeds a 0.45 FAR. Some of the exceptional design treatments include contrasting exterior cladding materials with a stucco siding on the ground floor and horizontal wood paneling on the second floor, a combination of casement awning and fixed clad windows throughout. A landscape plan was also provided by the applicant as part of the project submittal and illustrate the use of new mulch, decomposed granite, various plantings, concrete pavers, and a new deck with stairs at the rear of the home. Here's a snapshot of that proposed landscape plan. Parking. There are 2 off-street parking spaces on the existing property, one located in the garage space and additional on the existing driveway. No additional off-street parking is required under this project scope. Staff has not received any correspondences in regard to this project proposal. The project is categorically exempt from SEQA review pursuant to section 15303 of the SEQA guidelines. And with that, staff recommends the Planning and Zoning Commission review and approve the proposed project subject to the findings and conditions of approval. And with that, I would also just like to note that we have the applicant in attendance today and that she also has a presentation she's prepared that she's willing to give. Thank you.
Please, if the applicant would like to make a presentation now. Please go ahead and let them in.
One moment. Hi, Julie. Can you hear us and can you share your screen?
Julie, you appear to be unmuted, but we can't hear you. Was Julie made a panelist?
Yeah, she is.
And now you're muted, Julie. We see you now, but you're muted. There we go.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, okay, I'm Julie Drummond, the architect for the project, and just wanted to thank the planners and staff for taking the time to review our project. I'm going to share our presentation if I can. Let's see. Sorry. I also sent it to Christopher, so
Yeah.
I'm not sure if
Maybe Christopher could pull it up.
Yeah,
he can pull it up at this time.
One moment.
It's asking for system preferences.
Oh, here we go. Here we go. Okay. So I just wanted to start out by talking about the original home because it is, you know, part of this McGregor development plan. And as you can see from the photos, it still maintains some of what's classic about a McGregor, which is the large picture windows and the open front porch. But you can see the homes on either side. It's really, you know, there isn't a lot of continuity between the homes on this block. And this one in particular doesn't have the original chimney or original windows. And it's been sort of fussed with over the years. But what makes this house special is that it's been in the same family for over 50 years. And our clients, the Peskins, really want to stay and make it into a home that they can use for their family of four and modernize it in a way that works for them with open plan on the interior and flow from the inside to the outside. And so what we've proposed here below is the design which maintains a lot of the McGregor features, the large picture windows, the front porch, and tried to sort of bring it up to a contemporary bungalow design that incorporates materials that are prevalent throughout the neighborhood with the wood siding, the stucco, the mullioned windows. And in doing that, we were really looking at the 7 principles that the city of Albany, you know, has in their guidelines, which we've tried to address and follow throughout our process. Let's see if I can
click forward.
Oh, can you click to the next slide? Oh, thank you. So the first principle is the landscape design, which proposes a layering of lower plants and higher plants to create accessibility to the street, yet provides some privacy, and utilizes a combination of gravels and pavers. And then in the back, as Christopher mentioned, we have a deck, which I've shown sort of in the rendering, deck which opens from the back of the home out to the yard. And because of the height of the plate height of the first floor of the home, it creates a very open flow. We don't have to have a very high raised deck in the back or the front. And again, with outdoor space, we've just tried to create a flow and an openness to the sidewalk and the front and back. So if you don't mind, Christopher, moving to the next slide. Just in the architectural design, we are keeping the open front porch, but remodeling it so that it's, or not remodeling it, we're expanding the steps and opening it up so that it can be more of an outdoor room open to the front yard. And the front portion of the home remains 1 story. And we've just showed some images of other homes in the neighborhood that combine similar materials with wood siding and stucco and mullioned windows. And then as far as livability, as Christopher mentioned, we've created an open plan concept on the main floor, where before in the existing home right now, the back portion of the house is down 5 steps and is very chopped up by a lot of little rooms. We're creating an open flow through the living spaces from front to back and keeping the main primary bedroom and bathroom on the main level. And, widened the staircase and created accessible bathrooms and just opened it all up. And we will be, as required, adding solar to the home and sprinklers as part of, this proposed project. Okay, I think we could move on to the next slide. So again, speaking about context, with the windows, we're trying to go back to what actually is more prevalent in the neighborhood, which is the mullioned windows, as opposed to what's currently on the house, which is, sliders that were probably from the 70s, I'd say. And again, with the front porch, adding a window to create a feeling of it being an outdoor room. As far as accessory dwelling units go, we do have the garage on the property, but at this time we're not proposing to touch it. But sometime in the future, they could make it into an ADU if they decide to. And as Christopher mentioned, the parking really doesn't change. We can have 2 tandem spots on the driveway as well as the garage. So I think that's it for us. Unless you have any questions.
Okay, thank you for the presentation and to staff. And do any commissioners have questions of the?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you now.
Are the commissioners able to hear me?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I believe.
1 second.
You may have to restart or something. Perhaps someone could send Julia a message. Testing 1, 2, 3.
I can't hear anybody. I'm so sorry.
Restart. What's the universal symbol for restart? Anyone have a sign?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but you can't.
Restart your Zoom. Okay.
Can you hear us?
Okay.
Are you able to hear us? I don't think so. Okay. I was going to suggest that they restart, which looks like they're doing. Perhaps in the meantime, we could get started with any questions for staff. Anyone? Any commissioner? I'm not seeing any questions for staff.
Questions. Mm-hmm.
And Julia's back. And Julie, can you hear us? Well, we might come back to you, Julie. There's no questions that did anyone have a question for the applicant?
No.
Okay, so Julie, we're going to go ahead and open it for public comment on this, and if we have questions for you later, we can bring you back then. So, does any member of the public wish to speak on this item? Please raise your hand now. And I'm not seeing any public hands raised for this planning application. So counting down 3, 2, 1, we'll bring it back to the commission for any comments. Would anyone like to make comments on the project? Yes, Commissioner Waddy, please go ahead.
Sure, I'll just go ahead and jump in. I don't have too many comments. Overall, I think this is a really well-designed project. I think they...
Oh, no.
Some of the existing architectural qualities and architectural features while incorporating more contemporary features. And I think everything has been detailed well, high quality materials, contextual and all of that good stuff. So I don't have any issues with the project, and I am willing to move the project forward and support it tonight. So I'll leave my comments there.
Okay, thank you very much. And Commissioner Donaldson.
Yeah, I think I second that. My comments are very similar. It's a very interesting project. I think the design is interesting, especially the flat roof. At first, I looked hard at that, but I think it's going to work, especially with the materials on the second floor, changed materials there. I really like all the windows. I think it'll be a very window-centric building and I'm really pleased that the windows with the mullions and small frames are going to be brought back into the house. And so I think that's a real improvement. And I think it's a really good project. I can support it.
Okay, Commissioner McLeod.
Yeah, I just would agree with my colleagues. Yeah, I think it's a nice blend of old and new. It's, nice project. I think it'll fit in nicely with the neighborhood. I appreciate the landscape plan and the detail shown there, and, it looks like a nice planting plan. I like the idea of more permeable surfaces in the back and in the front too. I think that's a good move. I like the effort with the windows. Can appreciate that. And I guess the only last thing I would do would be to encourage the clients to go all electric. You're doing solar power on the roof, and I would, bump it up, raise your game, take it all electric. That's the goal. That's where we're heading. So I strongly encourage you to do that. So I'm prepared to support the project without any modifications. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I can concur with my fellow commissioners' comments. I thought it was a good project. I don't have anything more to add, but would second the comments about encouraging the applicant to go all electric. And would anyone like to move the project?
Sure. I'm happy to move approval of planning application 22017, design review for a second story addition at 631 Carmel, and move the conditions of approval that have been set forth in the staff report.
Do we have a second?
That.
Okay. Moved by Donaldson, Commissioner, seconded by Commissioner Waddy. Do we have anyone voting no or abstaining from this vote? Otherwise, I'll assume we're all a yes. And so it passes unanimously with 4 yeses. And thank you for coming. Thank you for your presentation on the project. And we are done. I do believe this project does have story poles, so those need to remain up during the 14-day appeal period. But otherwise, you're good to go with the Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you again for being here, Julie Drummond. Okay. Moving on to item 7.2, which is the temporary use permit for the Foodieland Night Market at Golden Gate Fields, which is 1100 East Shore Highway. Staff has a presentation. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Once again, before you tonight is the TUP for Foodieland Night Market at Golden Gate Fields. I'll do a quick presentation. I know the project applicant is also in attendance, so we're both available to answer questions afterwards. So what is Foodieland? Foodieland, once again, is a night market with, that is a street food festival with over 100 food vendors, food trucks, and approximately 50 plus retail vendors. The applicant anticipates approximately 30,000 to 40,000 attendees over a 3-day period. Attendees are anticipated to stay a maximum of 2 to 3 hours for the event. The hours of operation that the applicant has requested for the event is 1 p.m. to 11 p.m. The event is proposed to take place 3 times during 2022, and specifically those dates are August 5th through 7th, August 12th through 14th, and then again in October 7th through 9th. Here's the site location. Everyone's probably pretty familiar, but this is the north end of the Golden Gate Fields parking lot, and that's where the event is proposed to take place. And this is the event layout plan. This was included in the staff report and as well as an attachment. And with that, the applicant is seeking, once again, a temporary use permit to operate the street food festival at Golden Gate Fields. Section 2020-090 of the Albany Municipal Code details specific uses that require a TUP. Foodie Land is one of them. TUPs are actually typically reviewed at a staff level as part of administrative review. However, due to the obviously very large attendance that's proposed for this type of event, staff has referred the application request to the Planning and Zoning Commission for review and possible approval tonight. Findings for the temporary use permit are included as attachment 2 of the staff report. Some background on the event. In 2019, Foodie Land obtained its first temporary use permit in Albany, and the commission approved that for a total of 3 weekends that year in 2019. On February 12th of 2020, the Planning and Zoning Commission did approve another TUP for the event to operate an additional, a few additional times during the year for a total of 5 weekends. However, the event did not take place due to the COVID-19 pandemic that's still going on. And then lastly, the last TUP approval was for Foodie Land back in last year, 2021, and that was for 3 weekends. The event did take place 3 times in 2021. There were a couple substantial complaints regarding the last Foodie Land event in 2021. The first major one was regarding trash accumulated and spread throughout the event site, and that was mainly due to high winds. The second complaint came from our police department regarding unwelcome behavior with some of the event patrons, along with concerns regarding the thoroughness of the private security team and screening. And with that, and in speaking with our colleagues at the police department, staff has drafted additional special conditions of approval to complement the previous year's special conditions of approvals, and they were included as attachment 3 of the staff report. And I included it here. These are the special conditions that staff has drafted, and I've highlighted the ones kind of more notable and worth mentioning. The first, which is carryover, is just that this use permit is revocable if the police department finds that law enforcement concerns continue with the event. The other one I wanted to highlight was that the police, and this was included in the staff report too, that the police department recommended the event cutoff time to be 9 p.m. rather than the requested 11 p.m. We felt that we would, that our sentiment aligns with the police department, and that we'd be willing to have that condition of approval be from 1 p.m. to 9 p.m. every day of the event. However, the applicant did request an 11 p.m. event cutoff time. The next 3 that I'm highlighting are in regards to the trash mitigation. And so these go further into the particulars of how trash and waste should be handled in general for all food vendors and for patrons. And then the last condition is that vehicle parking for the toll booths be located further as far into Golden Gate Fields as possible in order to help avoid any vehicle backup with the 80 and 580 on and off ramps. Staff has received 1 correspondence that was forwarded to the Planning and Zoning Commission automatically, and those were voicing concerns regarding the secured bicycle parking and the lack of security staff patrolling the bicycles at previous events. In that same correspondence, there was also a suggestion for additional signage for patrons to lock their bikes while in attendance of the event. The temporary use permit is categorically exempt from secret review pursuant to section 15301 existing facilities and section 15303 minor alterations to land. And with that, staff recommends that the Planning and Zoning Commission review and approve the proposed project subject to the findings and draft conditions of approval. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We also have the applicant in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you. Did any commissioners have questions of staff? Yes, Commissioner McLeod.
Yeah, regarding the litter, that was it just one event that it was a major concern, or all three of the events?
The event from last year came from the first event, which occurred in August. We did send that letter to the applicant, and they made a good faith effort in resolving that. We didn't receive any other complaints after the fact.
Okay, and so it's mostly high winds and somehow lack of getting things into the bins, and it was blowing. I mean, did litter blow onto the Bay Trail, onto the beach? I mean,
there was some that flew into the Bay Trail. So that's a lot of the concern came from that too.
So basically trash was blowing into a state park from our city.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to be really clear about that. And then I guess with the police recommendation, I'm struggling a little bit to understand what the difference will be if it's, I mean, what are the concerns between 9 and 11? How will that prevent problems? Are all the problems occurring later, or just, can you give us a little more background on that? Like why from 9 to 11 it would not be feasible to do this event or less desirable?
In speaking with both the applicant and the police department, it seemed the police department's concerns or hopes with reducing the event time to 9 p.m. is that the focus will not be on drinking as much, because most of the eating happens around dinner time, which is hopefully earlier than that. So that's kind of their thinking with it. The applicant requested that maybe a compromise could be struck with a 10 p.m. cutoff time. However, the police department felt that the 9 p.m. time would still be recommended.
Yeah, I guess, sorry. So were the police calls from 9 to 11 where they had to respond to certain things? Was it? Or were they at other times also?
I honestly don't know the particulars of when the police calls were made, but there were several complaints regarding some not good behavior at the event.
And was that, how many events was that happening at? Was it like all three of the last year's events? Or I'm just trying to kind of get a sense of the scale of the problem, or, kind of figure out what's going on.
I can't speak honestly. I'm not sure if it happened at all three events, but the police department did seem pretty concerned with this in particular. So yeah.
Commissioner McLeod?
I'm okay. That's good enough for now.
You're done? Okay. Any more questions from commissioners? Yeah, I guess I don't have any questions at this time. So let's go to public comment. Do any members of the public wish to speak on this item? If so, raise your virtual hand in Zoom. And not seeing any members of the public raising their hands. So we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion.
Is the applicant present?
Yes.
I have questions for the applicant, actually.
Oh, all right. Yeah, sure. Let's let the applicant in.
One moment. Go ahead, Kevin.
Hello, Kevin.
Kevin Wang, you appear to be able to speak. We cannot
yes.
hear you. We heard a little something. It's not clear. Your audio is good.
Okay, is this a little bit better?
Yes, better.
Great.
Good. Mhm.
Okay, Commissioner McLeod, you had a question?
Yeah, I was really, well, I'm really concerned about litter. That's one thing. And then I'm also concerned about bike parking. And also last time you came before us, there was a suggestion that Golden Gate Fields would provide the shuttle bus to BART. And I was wondering if that actually happened last year. And if not, why not? And I would also like to find out about having it done this year or for these events. Because two of my biggest concerns are traffic and then obviously litter. And so could you tell me whether the shuttle bus happened last year?
Yeah, so the shuttle bus didn't happen last year. We did speak to Golden Gate about it, and then we were bouncing back ideas. I think their concern was the liability. So for what we can do this year is we can contact a third party and see and hire a third party company to do that shuttle bus between the BART station and Golden Gate Fields. I think that'll alleviate it. And one of the concerns last year was, I think, COVID, and people didn't want to be in a confined space, and that's kind of the direction that we were looking at. But we definitely do like the idea of having like a shuttle bus, and that'll definitely help with traffic congestion.
Yeah, I think that would be, you know, I mean, part of the goal, every event, you know, I'd like to see improvement in alternatives to people arriving by car, and having the shuttle bus and publicizing it, you know, would be a help for that, for sure. And
Yeah,
then,
definitely.
I just want to follow up too on the bike racks. I mean, one letter came in that said the bike racks weren't very well secured. They weren't really monitored. The bike racks are not a very effective type of bike rack for locking. So what are you planning on doing to improve that situation?
So for the bike racks last year, we actually changed to a different type of bike rack. It's a heavier steel bike rack, and it's attached to the fence in that fenced off area. So it's a more secure one than we've used in the past, back in 2019. And we did place it closer to the exit where there's a guard station. But for this year, what we can do is we can add additional signage to recommend people to bring their own locks. And then we can also adjust the position a little bit to be closer to where the guard is positioned near the main exit.
And is the entrance in and out of the bike area actually monitored by a security guard?
Yeah, there's a security guard nearby on both the emergency exit on the right side, where the ambulance is usually parked, and then the main event exit, which is where the bike rack's located next to. So it's located next to two guard positions.
Okay, and then it should be fully enclosed with just narrow openings for access, correct?
Correct. Yes, there's only one way to enter in the bike containment area.
And how many bike spaces were there?
I believe there was about 40.
40.
Yeah, and we had on average, we noticed there was about 15 to 20 bikes on average.
Okay, that's it for questions for right now.
Oh, I can't hear you, Nick.
Oh, thank you. Sorry about that. Did you also have questions for the applicant or just comments?
I have for the applicant, yes. Kevin, I want to ask, it seems to me that there were some concerns about the security force last year. I want to ask if you have the same security plan for this year, same personnel, will it be a different company or more people? What changes are you going to make this year to beef up the security? It looks like it might be necessary to do. Mm-hmm.
So for this year, we were planning on contracting security out to CSC instead of Fisher Security, which is the company that we used in 2019 and as well as last year.
Okay.
good experience with CSC. They cover our security for the Rose Bowl event that we have, and we haven't had any issues with them. They have a good supervisor that manages the entrance, exits, vendor entrances. Overall, it's been a lot better for us, and that's one of the things that was our agenda this year, is we wanted to change out the security contractor, and also add more security staff. And we're also overhauling all our metal detectors. We're implementing an evolved weapons detection system, which allows attendees to be able to walk through the detector without opening their bags or a bag check, and it'll automatically screen for weapons, knives, guns, and other potential weapons. And it has a less likely chance of triggering, unlike the regular metal detector. So the guards are more attentive to what the potential threats.
And you say that'll be a new system this year? Mm.
Correct. That is a new system.
Okay. Well, that sounds good, actually. Thank you. Okay. All right. The police department and the staff are recommending a closure at 9 p.m. Can you work with that? Mm.
I think 9 is a little early for our event, just because it's more of like a night, like a late evening event. A lot of times people come after work on Friday. Tends to be more of a family thing, but I do agree with closing earlier. Our thought was if we close at 10 and potentially have Golden Gate Field stop serving liquor at 9, and that way there's that buffer that the police department was concerned about the liquor sales after 9 o'clock.
And is it Golden Gate Fields that sells your liquor? Your vendors don't sell liquor?
Correct. Our vendors are not allowed to sell any liquor or soda. It has to be it would be something sold by Golden Gate Fields, so they manage all the bars.
Golden Gate Fields does. I see.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. And do the patrons go into Golden Gate Fields to get their drinks, or do they have a booth set up at the edge of your event near the stage or something like that?
They have a mobile bar set up. They have a couple locations spread out kind of throughout the event, but it's staffed by their own employees.
I see. Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Commissioner Donaldson, further questions?
I don't think so right now. Mm-hmm.
Okay, Commissioner McLeod, looks like you came up with another question or two.
Yeah, just to follow up on the security questions. Kevin, from your point of view, what were the problems last year, and do you feel you can adequately handle them I kind of like the idea of the compromise of shutting at 10 and no liquor sales after 9. Sort of what happened last year that caused concern?
Yeah. So one of the issues that I remember that was the police department we've discussed about was a concern was there was an attendee that had pulled out a gun, but it wasn't in the event area; it was in the parking lot. So they had an altercation with another attendee, and I believe a lady had pulled out a gun out of her bag. Is it a backpack or is it a handbag? But we were not clear if that was if that even entered the event area, because she had went back to her vehicle. So it was something that happened outside in the parking lot.
Oh.
And that was I believe that happened around 5 or 6 p.m.
Do you have does your security patrol the parking lot also?
Yeah, so our security patrols the parking lot, and also Golden Gate Fields patrols the parking lot because they handle all the event parking. So they have vehicles patrolling, and then their armed securities patrolling as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, but that was the only incident I could recall happening at the event. There was a major concern.
Okay, Commissioner McLeod, finished with your questions?
Yeah, that's all. Thanks.
Okay, anyone else have questions for the applicant? If not, we can move on to discussion. Would anyone like to begin discussing this item?
I wish we knew more from the police department and why the police department, and get some basis for why the police department is recommending a 9 p.m. closure. it's hard for me to vote against that, but from what I've seen and from what I've heard here, and from the nature of the event, I'm kind of like Commissioner McLeod and thinking that 10 p.m. sounds reasonable for an event of this nature. And I certainly would approve stopping the ceasing the sale of liquor at 9. That's good. I can think of that. I wish I had attended the event myself to sort of scope it out. I went the first year, and the wait was so long to get in that I gave up and didn't go. So it's a hard call for me to make on this. I don't know what other commissioners think.
Well, I'll jump in. I agree that I'm fine with the 10 p.m. or even 11 p.m. stop time if the liquor sales stop at 9. I think I don't want to prevent the event from happening just because of the closing time. And it does not seem like liquor sales. We don't have any evidence that even liquor sales were an issue in previous events. So I have attended this event once, and I was able to get in quickly. I had got an online ticket, and then they had a quick process for scanning people and getting them in.
That's good.
And I was surprised that there wasn't a very good method or weren't very good methods for dealing with the trash or the waste. And in fact, that's where I have big problems with this event. Embarrassingly, I only recently learned that Berkeley, just next door, requires compostable food and beverage containers everywhere. It's a requirement. So there is no non-compostable waste generated by takeout containers in Berkeley. And I would like to see that as a condition of approval here. I don't see any reason why we can't enforce that, especially as was pointed out, we're right near the sensitive area, state park, and there's also the wetlands to the east as well. I am glad to hear about their improvements in the bike parking. And I would say that I care very much about that as well. And we'll be monitoring that if there's further applications in front of us in the future. And I note the last time this came up before us, we discussed the condition of publicizing the bike parking, and we rejected it. I'm not really sure why. I do think that in keeping with our climate goals, both the reduction of waste and the promotion of bicycle parking should be done, and that those are very consistent with our city's general plan and the goals of the city. And so I would want, those would be two conditions I would see if any of my fellow commissioners would be interested in or would agree with me on, is the use of compostables and the requirement of publicizing bike parking. As well as the BART shuttle. So those are my comments. Anyone else?
Could we ask the applicant if they require what the rules are on using compostable containers? I hadn't heard about that from the applicant, and I don't know the nature of the waste that was out there. Compostable containers can blow away beyond the fence just as easily as compostable ones. So I don't know what do the vendors use now, or Kevin, what do you require the vendors to use, or do you have any requirements for the food containers?
So for food containers, we always recommend the vendors pretty much don't use plastic. It's not a hard enforcement yet, but we don't allow our vendors to utilize styrofoam. We always recommend paper straws, compostables, but it hasn't been a hard requirement, but we are open to making that a requirement this year. I think we have enough time. Last year, I think the concern was supply chain issues with getting proper packaging, but with the supply chain getting better, it's something we can definitely start to enforce, but it might take a little bit of time to roll out. It's something I think I do feel like it's achievable, but I don't know if it's fully achievable off the bat on the first event. But we're definitely interested in going in that direction, as well as composting, recycling, and doing a full separation of trash.
Okay. Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Donaldson. Commissioner McLeod?
Yeah, I would, I would definitely support moving towards all compostable, biodegradable serving things, utensils, etc. And I would support having the BART shuttle as a condition of approval. And also, publicizing the bike parking. I think that's a big part of the mission, would be to publicize the bike parking, publicize the BART shuttle. I mean, one of the major concerns is traffic. And if you're getting 30,000 to 40,000 people, I don't know how many vehicles that represents. I do remember one day seeing traffic backed up onto, the off ramps and all that in the area. So, I think the goal is to not just do the minimum, but every event, try to build on it and get more and more people there by alternative means and reduce the pollution generated by the traffic and the number of cars on the road and the congestion in our city. So I would strongly, want to see the alternatives advertised much better in all your publicity items. And then trash is a really big concern for me if it's blowing around, especially if it's blowing onto a state park, onto a beach and into the bay potentially. So, I think you're going to have to commit to like continuous cleanup. And if it's windy, allocate more staff to cleaning up, and also just a much more efficient way of collecting the trash so it doesn't have the possibility of being blown around. Because if there's trash, it's really, I can't support the event if there's trash blowing onto a state park from our city. I just won't be able to support it in the future. I'm happy to continue now, but if it comes back that we're creating litter and trash in our state park and the Bay Trail, then, it's going to be difficult to support in the future. Regarding the opening times, I'm a little frustrated by a little lack of information from the police department, maybe a clearer justification. I'm not against staying open till 11. Maybe 10 is a good compromise in the short run, or for this year. Stopping liquor sales at 9 seems fine. And if you have a new security team, maybe that will be helpful. I'm open to having the event stay open later than 9, and, would see what the consensus is, or, all our commissioners here. So that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McLeod. Commissioner Wadi?
Sure. Quick question for Mr. Wang again. And sorry if I missed this part, but in terms of your new security team that you're having, is there any plan to have them, constantly like rolling through the parking lot? It seems like that's where the altercation was. So just curious if you're sort of deploying a new strategy with that team, given the incidents that happened last year.
Yeah, definitely. So we will have our security team go through the parking lot, have dedicated people roaming around, as well as coordinate with Golden Gate Feels Better to make sure that they're also aware with the need to constantly monitor the parking lot in both lots, in both the upper and lower lots.
Okay, thank you for that. Just sort of my general thoughts here. I am typically sort of very much want to support the position that the police department is taking on this. The Albany Police Department is a very small police department, and this, is not the size of an event that is, I think, very typical or normal for our police department to have to respond to. It might be a lot more reasonable for a larger city to be able to handle this type of an event, but I think for the size of our police department, I understand, I think, some of the concerns around sort of limited staffing and trying to really minimize risk to the greatest degree possible. I'm certainly not one to impede on economic development or cool activities that are sort of placemaking in nature, which I do think this very much is, but just also very hypersensitive, especially given a lot of the incidents of late, to make sure that we're really supporting our law enforcement and sort of setting them up for success as well, and setting everyone up for success. And I do feel, just in general, the later something is open, the longer people are drinking, the more likely, behavior has a tendency to go in a certain direction. Again, I don't think this is anything knocking the applicant here. I don't think there's anything specifically that the applicant can do per se. I just think it's sort of the nature of the beast. When you have an event that goes into later hours and people are drinking, the longer it goes, the greater your risk increases. So I would hedge my bets that is probably the genesis of the 9 p.m. recommendation. I personally would err on that side and say, something didn't go perfectly last year. Let's pull the hours back and kind of earn back that time. And if everything goes well this coming year, and especially it's a year we're still kind of dealing with COVID, we're in still a transitional moment. If everything goes well this year, the trash goes well, the shuttle goes well, the bike parking goes well, the security goes well, can kind of build back up. But I think there were just enough issues and enough things that still feel like they're being figured out, that I would rather err on the side of it ending a little bit earlier. And then I would be fine with everything ending at 9, not having to stagger when alcohol sales stop and when they don't. I know I've been to enough events where when alcohol ends early, people just, buy 3 at the last minute and continue drinking until the last, until they kick you out. So I'm not sure that really does a whole lot of anything, other than having people, hoard their beverages, I suppose. So I would err on the side of taking the conditions of approval that have been proposed for this year while all of the other logistics get figured out. I do absolutely agree with what my fellow commissioners have said here in terms of the shuttle. I think the shuttle is really also important to limit the amount of DUIs that could be potentially out there, especially this location really lends itself to people driving, and the fact that there's alcohol going in, to late hours. That's actually more of my primary concern here, is the number of people who are going to be coming and then getting right on the freeway and driving home after having some drinks. So I think the more we can really make sure there's a robust shuttle system from BART and really make it easy for people to be able to do that and then enjoy themselves, the better, sort of with a high frequency of shuttles, so that people aren't milling around waiting for the shuttles to come, where again, I think that's where you have a higher likelihood for altercations to happen. So sort of a high frequency shuttle plan that maybe we add as a condition of approval, that sort of the frequency in the plan gets drafted up and approved by staff before finalized. But with that, with those conditions in place, I would be supportive of maintaining the 9 p.m. closure for this year, knowing to the applicant that I think this is a sort of rebuilding year, if you will. Like, let's get it right this year. Let's really focus in on making sure that there aren't incidents this year, and whether those incidents are sort of altercations or, the trash incidents or whatever. Let's just really try to get things going in a really good direction so that this can become a wonderful sort of tradition in Albany moving forward. And then in subsequent years, we can maybe look at increasing the hours once we've got a little bit more confidence in that. So that's where I am right now. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Donaldson.
Oh, yes, thank you. Actually, I find Commissioner Waddy's thinking about the closing time quite persuasive. And I'm want to, it wasn't the reason I raised my hand, but I do appreciate that. A minor comment I want to make, I guess, I was surprised about the reports of the trash on the Bay Trail. When I did the work on Tom Bates Field, the environmental studies on Tom Bates Field some years ago, I obtained a windrose from the Berkeley Marina, and the wind there at Golden Gate Fields blows from the ocean toward the land 90% of the time when it blows. So it's very unusual to have a wind event, unless something was circling around or something like that, that would actually move the trash that might fall in this area toward the Bay Trail. I don't know what happened that night or that one time, I guess it is possible, but I would say it's unlikely, given given the prevailing winds. So anyway, again, I think Elizabeth's comments are very persuasive, and maybe this year we should defer to the police department and see how it goes, and see if they can have a real good security system and can run a really clean event. Mm-hmm.
Okay, let me just jump in to address the comment about compostable items by Commissioner Donaldson. Yes, they can blow around just as well as non-compostable ones, but the idea is the compostable ones will eventually biodegrade and become part of the environment, whereas the non-compostable ones will blow into the environment and become trash in the environment. So, and I can see that perhaps some of the items, the trash, got onto the Bay Trail area, perhaps by people just milling about and walking to the Bay Trail, because I'm not sure that there's a fence between that parking area and the Bay Trail there. So
you're correct. There is an opening in the fence, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I heard the applicant be okay with requiring compostable items, so I don't see any reason why we couldn't go that way. And I like the other commissioners' comments about the shuttle, and I'd prefer to have the bike publicity, and I'd be fine with a later end time, but that's not a deal breaker for me.
Nick, Mr. Chair, what I heard was the applicant might have trouble doing all the compostable stuff for the first event in August, and less trouble for the later events this year. So, and I think the condition as written said the business operation must encourage all vendors to utilize reusable and compostable food service, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that might be acceptable for the first event, which is what, August 7th, I think, 5 to 7, and then require it subsequent to that. If
Okay, required for the last two
if
events.
that's okay with you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, well, that sounds reasonable if it's a case of, supply chain, et cetera. Kevin Wang, you've got your hand raised now.
Oh, yes. I forgot to mention that sometimes we do have vendors selling like novelty, like packaging for like their drinks. We have vendors that are selling like agua frescas drinks in like plastic packaging, but it's more of a novelty item. Those are packaging that people don't typically toss away. They take home with them and then reuse them. If we could get an exemption for something like that, because we have quite a number of vendors that do something like that, where they have their own sort of custom packaging that they would like to sell, and it comes in a sort of like either a plastic, sometimes, or a metal container, but those aren't things that we'll toss out at the event.
That seems reasonable to me. Actually, I'm remembering when I was there, some patrons were walking around with what looked like large baby bottles, which held their drinks. A little bit silly, but is a fun event. Yeah, I think if they're reusable items, that's fine. Although, I'm not going to go there. I would prefer that there be absolutely no plastic whatsoever. But if they're reusable, yeah, that seems like a reasonable exception. Maybe I'll take since I'm passionate about some of these items, I'll take a stab at a motion if commissioners are ready for that.
Certainly.
So I'll move that we approve the commission, sorry, let me get my agenda here. The temporary use permit for Foodieland Night Market, PA 22-008, with the following additional or changes to conditions, that we require compostable items for any single use. We require compostable containers for any single use food or beverage uses, and reusable items are okay to be non-compostable. That we require a BART shuttle with sufficient frequency, and staff will approve the frequency and timetable of that, and that we require that the existence of bike parking be featured prominently in the publicity. Do I have a second?
And just to clarify, that was the standard conditions proposed by staff plus those 3 additional.
Correct.
Okay, I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you.
And just to clarify, that would be the hours of operation, stop all operations stopping at 9 p.m. Is that?
Yeah, I think that's if unless I hear otherwise, it seems like we are okay with that. Kevin Wang, you've got your hand up again.
Yes. So I guess our concern with stopping at 9 is because we've been promoting the past few months about closing at a later time, which is usually 11, but I know we can compromise usually at like 10, and vendors would mind because, for example, our events at like the Rose Bowl Stadium, we close at 10 because of city noise ordinances. But our concern is if we close at 9, it's going to be a significant impact for vendors that are selling to like more of a dinner crowd that starts to come in at around 8 p.m., like 7 or 8 p.m. And our concern financial impact on our vendors and kind of the experience that attendees have, because we've had our tickets kind of available for a while now, and we do have a number of like later night tickets. Not so much on the like 10 o'clock. So those are completely fine. But our concern is closing at like a hard stop at 9 is more of our concern.
Yeah, I'm sympathetic with that, but I don't know that we have consensus among the other commissioners. With the other commissioners, go ahead, Commissioner McLeod.
I would support allowing them to stay open until 10, and
with liquor sales stopping at 9.
Liquor sales stopping at 9, and then if there are reports of problems, then we review again. I think it is part of the conditions that if there are further incidents, correct, Christopher, that we would bring it back to us for subsequent review or approval, right?
That's correct. It's revocable if there's continued law enforcement concerns with the police department.
Yeah.
Or any concerns, I think, right?
Well, I would support 10 o'clock, and then if there are further incidents, then we review again on after a specific event and modify things further at that point.
Okay, we have 2 commissioners who are okay with 10. I know.
It looks like we could have a 2-2 tie on this. Would anyone go for 9:30?
That would be low if it's a serious proposal. Kevin Wang, do you think 9:30 would be would help?
I think that would be a little hard, but typically we usually wouldn't really admit anyone past 9. So for example, if we close at 10, our ticket sales will most likely stop at like 8 p.m. or like 8:30, assuming that people aren't going to want to show up to an event and only stay there for like an hour. So we tend to cut off the ticket sales pretty early on. And then it's basically whoever's left at the event, they're buying food, they're standing in line, and then they're checking out, and then they're eating their food and kind of making their way out. That's kind of our thought on a 10 p.m. stop, but we would definitely like close off the entrance much earlier than that.
Commissioner Donaldson, could you go to 10?
Oh boy.
Or Commissioner Waddy, but you were pretty clear on your feelings.
Yeah, to me, this isn't like a negotiation with the applicant. This is a discretionary action. In my opinion, tickets should not be getting sold before an approval is granted. So for me, I think, sales closing at 9 and understanding that it still always takes people a while to mill out of a place and get out of there. I don't think we're saying the place has to be vacated by 9, but that the vendor stops serving at 9 and people are told to leave. So, if the votes are split, I could go to 9:30, but I really want to respect the conditions that our police department has proposed on this, especially given that things didn't go perfectly last year. So that's the position I have.
Thank you. Yeah, I just feel like it is a night market. It is called the night market, I believe. Still, yes, it's called the night market. So maybe a good compromise would be to go to the 9:30 at this point. It sounds like we do have consensus among the commissioners. So I'll amend my motion to include the liquor sales stopping at 9, but the event closing at 9:30 instead of 9. And do I have a concurrence on the second?
Sure, I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second on those conditions. Is everyone clear on the conditions at this point?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think we have consensus on this, so I'll just ask if anyone is abstaining or voting no on this. Otherwise, I think we have unanimous approval of those conditions.
I'll support it. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, good.
Okay. With those conditions, we have a unanimous approval of that item. So thank you for the applicant for being here, and good luck with your event. And next, we have new business, of which we have none. And the next meeting, it states June 8th, but we were just told that that would be canceled. So I assume that the 8 plus 14 will be the 22nd of June will be our next meeting.
That's correct. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, I will be absent at that meeting,
Okay. Thank you.
just so you know.
And I believe we'll have Commissioner Moment back at that time,
That's
as
correct.
far as we know.
Mhm.
Okay, well, thank you. I don't believe we have any more business. Any last items, staff? Or if not, thank you everyone for your work tonight. Nice short meeting, and go enjoy your evening. Good night.
Okay, thank you.